Well, Dan, it's hard to argue against you. This is farcical, let's be frank, because Ukrainian military power is disintegrating in front of us right now. They're on their last legs. They've been through 12 rounds of mobilization. They're pushing people at gunpoint into uniform. They've taken 400,000 casualties as a minimum.
Wow.
There are perhaps somewhere between 18 and 22 million people left in Ukraine out of a population of 37.5 million. 10 million refugees, 4 or 5 million living in the areas that are under Russian control where, of course, the people are Russians anyway. And then 2 million working overseas in the European Union and Great Britain. So the population is not what it was, and 400,000 casualties is a very heavy burden for 18 to 22 million. And most of these casualties will never recover and return to the battlefield. And of that number, remember 157,000 dead and counting. 75% of all the casualties taken by the Ukrainians result from Russian artillery systems, rockets, missiles, shells. The Russians can fire 60,000 rounds a day. The Ukrainians are barely able to fire 6,500 in return. This is a farce. We've now promised these people tanks that won't arrive for months. And the German chancellor is foolish to even sign on for this nonsense. He should have stuck with his guns. Now his foreign minister says, we're in a state of war with Russia. Imagine the foreign minister of Germany saying that Germany is in a state of war with Russia. Scholz is not long for his job, I think. About 63% of the Germans were polled and said, we don't support sending anything to Russia.
Wow.
So I think this farce is coming to an end. And I imagine, Dan, that the argument will be, well, we did all we could. We sent them everything we could, and it just didn't work.
Colonel,
the truth is we've destroyed Ukraine.
You list these numbers, and these are numbers I don't hear anywhere in the mainstream media. Is that because the government doesn't release them? These journalists are lazy and don't do their research? How do we not have these facts out there on the big three, ABC, NBC, CBS, saying this is the reality of what's happening in this war, folks?
Well, Dan, that unlike you and some people at Fox, a few over there, the rest of the media is basically handed a narrative that comes straight out of the Department of Defense, the CIA, and the White House, and the State Department. And the narrative says, this is what you're going to say. This is Putin's war. This is an unprovoked attack by the Russians. It's all nonsense. We spent years provoking them, and the numbers that I'm citing to you are very accurate. And as people are looking at the demographics, they're figuring out where we're headed because, in addition to everything I just told you, the birth rate is the lowest in Europe in Ukraine. I mean, we're literally killing this nation by pushing them forward into this war. So the only real rational explanation we can come up with here in the United States is this is a scam to transfer wealth to donors for people on the Hill, wealth to the industries.
You've heard